Burnout is a depletion of our energy. If we have that energy that is being depleted and we don't get it somehow back, we get into burnout.
What are the causes of burnout?
At work, it is really caused by many issues, and the most important one is...
Today, we are talking about something that's affecting nearly every professional out there, burnout. According to Deloitte, 77% of people have experienced burnout at some point in their current job. 77%! And if that wasn't enough, almost half of workers report feeling emotionally drained from work on a regular basis. It is pretty staggering, right? So the big question is, how do we deal with this? To help us answer that, we've got Dora Vanourek with us today. She spent over 23 years in tech consulting at IBM and is now #1 LinkedIn creator in Canada, where she constantly sharing knowledge on burnout. We're going deep into what causes burnout, how to manage it, and how you can build a healthier work-life balance. Why don't we start with you telling us who is Dora?
I'm a burnout and leadership coach, and my mission really is to empower people to know that they can have both successful careers as well as personal lives.
What would you recommend to people entering the fast-paced, high-stress work environment to protect themselves? What should they do?
There is just so much going on that we cannot stop working and be done with it. So we really need to be clear what our boundaries are. So that's the one thing I would recommend. The second thing is we just have to get into this mindset that we just try our best and we keep learning new things, but we just cannot expect any kind of perfection. Third thing I would recommend is...
Please hit subscribe to the show and leave a review or comment about how you find this episode. Hey Dora, I'm so excited to have you on my podcast. It was a long time coming, but finally we're sitting here talking. I'm so excited.
Hello, Annie. So lovely to be here. Thank you.
And I understand this is your first ever podcast. Wow.
It really
That's
is.
Great.
Yes. Thank you.
Let's make it really, really great one.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so why don't we start with you telling us who is Dora?
Dora is a person who lives in Canada and originally from the Czech Republic. I'm a senior manager at IBM with about 25 years of experience in technology consulting. And in my free time, as well as part of my job, I help people with burnout. I'm a burnout and leadership coach, and my mission really is to empower people to know that they can have both successful careers as well as personal lives.
Great. And how come somebody born in Czech Republic lives in Canada? Was it a choice or your family had to move there?
It was a choice, yes. After the university, I thought I would travel a little bit, and I had a friend. I went to Canada and I just stayed. It seemed like a good place to establish my career, and then I just stayed.
Okay. And did you study to be an engineer?
I studied economics and business administration. That's what I did in the Czech Republic as well as in England at the University of Leicester. So I got a bachelor there. And when I moved to Canada later on, I also studied for my master's MBA. Mm-hmm.
And when did you decide you're going to join IBM? Why?
When I moved to Canada, for some reason, I really wanted to work for a consulting company, for a prestigious consulting company. I thought that would be really a way how I can establish my career. And I joined PricewaterhouseCoopers. But at that point, their consulting division, there was a conflict between like the accounting, advisory, and compliance, and we had to separate. And it just so happened that IBM bought us. At that time, IBM really wanted to go away from the computers, like manufacturing computers and more into services. So it made complete sense to do that acquisition.
Oh, wow. So you just landed IBM just like this?
Just like
How
that.
Lucky.
Yes.
How lucky. Oh, people go through so many interviews to go and to work in IBM, and there you are, just landed. Oh, amazing. What was the event or experience that made you interested in burnout?
I had my own experience, but as well as I have been coaching for a while, like over a decade, for careers. But when I started writing on LinkedIn and I wanted to really develop my career services in coaching, I found it a little difficult to articulate exactly what I would be doing and whether it will be like resume writing or helping people set their goals or maybe do transitions into different careers. And at that time, I have seen burnout becoming a real issue. as well as I have gone myself through burnout a bit before. And I thought, like, why don't I educate myself on it more? And why don't I help people? I didn't see at the time a lot of burnout coaches, so I bought every single book on Amazon that I could find. I read it. I educated myself. I spoke to a lot of people, and I decided maybe that's something I could do.
Great. So tell us, what is exactly burnout?
So the World Health Organization defines burnout by 3 dimensions, and all of them are a result of chronic stress that is not managed. The first dimension is exhaustion. People are really depleted. They don't have any energy. The second dimension is cynicism. We try to distance ourselves from work. We want to be a little further away. And then the third one is reduced performance. When people are burned out, they make a lot of mistakes because they don't remember things. It's really difficult to focus. They don't have clarity. So with those 3 dimensions, that is how burnout is defined.
Okay. In a work environment, what are the causes of burnout?
That's a really good question. And often people assume that burnout is caused by long hours alone. But truly, burnout is a depletion of our energy. If we have that energy that is being depleted and we don't get it somehow back, we get into burnout. At work, it is really caused by many issues. One of them, and the most important one, is not feeling valued. Like maybe we work really hard, but there is nothing, that not even a thank you from our boss, no recognition. Another one is maybe a toxic boss. We feel micromanaged. We don't have any control of our schedules. We are in calls, like back-to-back meetings for the whole day. Another one could be conflict in our values. Maybe we value integrity, but we are being asked to do something that doesn't feel right, that compromises that value. Maybe the team is not good, meaning like maybe there is some backstabbing and it's kind of a toxic environment. So all of that is really energy depleting. And unless we somehow recharge, that really burnout.
I guess that you don't get to fully burn out just immediately. It's just a gradual process. There are several steps to it. So what are these steps of burnout?
That's a really good question, because some people can burn out very quickly, let's say in a few months, but others, they go through the stages through decades even, and they don't realize. But there is a gradual progression, and it is in 5 different stages. And the first one is really what we call the honeymoon. And imagine that you have just been promoted, or maybe you just got a new job and you really want to prove yourself. You really want to work hard, and you just go all full in and you take more and more responsibilities, more and more things to do. But really nothing goes wrong in this stage. Especially nothing goes wrong if we actually find a way how to recharge, if we don't work 24/7, if we get proper sleep and things like that. If we don't, we move to the second stage, and that is really kind of the onset of stress. And that is, we realize that there is so many things we cannot do from our to-do list. And because of that, we skip on things that would re-energize us. For example, exercise or spending time with family. So that is really when the kind of stress and kind of onset of burnout starts. And then if we don't manage, we get into chronic stress. And this is when things start to happen, like we are not able to sleep properly. We cannot fall asleep because we are anxious. Or maybe we wake up at 4 a.m. We cannot sleep again because we are anxious, and we notice things happening. Maybe we start forgetting, or maybe we are more impatient, maybe even angry or emotional. So that will be the third stage. If we don't manage at that point, we move to burnout. And that is when a lot of those symptoms are very obvious and we can no longer ignore them. Maybe we even have problems with families, with relationships. For sure, we cannot sleep. We don't do things we used to enjoy. Maybe we even have health issues. And the final stage is that could be like a complete collapse. We are not able to function at all. Our performance goes down. Health issues start appearing even more. So it is kind of a gradual progression of those 5 phases. And as I mentioned, some people could be in one of those phases for decades even without realizing.
What are early signs? How can people realize, okay, I have to watch because I might be going in that direction? How can I What are the early signs?
For the early signs, it's really important to be self-aware and monitor changes in our lives. And this can be very different for everyone. For example, somebody could get emotional, cry easily. Maybe something doesn't go as well as it normally does. And, the person can start crying in a meeting, something that they wouldn't normally do. Or maybe they get very upset with their children. Maybe children don't do something again perfectly. And normally we would be very patient, but suddenly we are not. And this is happening more and more. Or maybe somebody gets more angry. So the first sign for sure is that we are not able to manage our emotions as we normally do. I would say the sleeping, changes in the sleeping pattern, that's a very strong sign as well. Also, maybe we try skipping on activities that we normally enjoy. And definitely, I would also say the cynicism. We kind of distance ourselves from the work and we are not as interested in innovation or initiatives or doing the extra things that we would normally do.
So it is kind of a withdrawal. It is the
withdrawal, yes, because unconsciously we kind of try to distance ourselves from what is causing the stress.
I see. So is burnout only applicable for work? Can you just get burnout only from work?
It's really interesting that a lot of people would associate burnout with work, but it is actually happening in so many different areas of our lives and even with people who are not professionally working. For example, young students. I keep hearing that students at universities and even late high schools get burned out because they have so many social responsibilities that they think they have to adhere to. Like, for example, spending time with friends, going to events. Yet they have so many studies to do and they just have a lot of responsibility that they take on themselves. And plus, of course, like the cell phones and being connected with everyone.
Yeah.
So I have definitely seen that a lot with students. In addition, it happens a lot with caregivers. For example, we take care of elder parents or children who are not doing that well. So it could happen in there as well. And even in personal lives, if we take on too many responsibilities like volunteering and too many events to go to, that could definitely happen in there too.
I remember, I don't know whether I've ever burned out, but it was not a case where I would never come to a situation where I would collapse. I've never had anything like this. When you were explaining the signs, I remember clearly that actually every time I have to launch a new product or I am worried about something, my sleep patterns change and I wake up I sleep and I wake up at 3:00 and it takes time. But then once this is gone, everything is fine. Everything goes back. There was one time when early in my career, I had a boss who it was very bad relationship. I could not do anything well. Anything, whatever I would do was not okay. So I remember that I was sleeping all the time and I felt tired all the time. But then I left that job and that thing just disappeared on the next day. I was just a normal person again. So these are my experiences. And I didn't know about burnout then at all. Even today, would people know about burnout? It's happening. There is a lot of talk about this on the news, in the newspapers, on LinkedIn, on social, anyway. And still people fall in this trap. Why? Why do we still fall in this trap?
It is very easy to fall into the trap because we are very adaptable as humans. And we are able to go through phases just like you have through the product launch, that you have a little bit of stress. And in fact, a little bit of stress actually helps our productivity. And maybe it does disrupt the sleeping for a bit, but then you went to normal cycle. But people often don't do this. They are in it for the long term. And it's almost like the frog in the water that is getting warmer, warmer, warmer. And the frog doesn't know that it's getting warmer, doesn't realize it, and it doesn't jump out in time. And because we are so adaptable, so resilient almost in a way, it's like a double-edged sword. When we get these, we get a lot of stress, so many things to do, we will actually do the thing that would help us prevent the burnout. We actually skip on it, actually. So, for example, instead of taking some time to recharge and maybe work out for 15, 20 minutes or go for a walk, read a book, or maybe just dance with our favorite music. We will actually skip on those things. And that is what is dangerous about a burnout, that we will not do those things that will actually help us. And we will not do them because we want to push through the burnout. We want to do more things so that we can check off everything from the to-do list. And the other thing is, a lot of people associate success with struggles. We see it in the movies. Yeah. We see it in the stories that people share. And of course, we have to go through struggles, but we don't have to go through like struggles of months and months and years. But sometimes we just have this idea that this is what it takes. So it is really about our mindset and awareness that makes us fall into that trap and go into burnout.
Yeah. No, I remember when, again, in that case, that I had something resembling a burnout, was that I was thinking, okay, so if the boss doesn't like me, so I have to actually put a lot of work, change myself, and do everything the way the boss wants. And I was going into this every day, and it never happened. And I was getting even more frustrated and more frustrated. And it just never stops until one day you just say, oh God, I can't do this anymore. And you just change. But I guess not everybody gets to realize that, right? So how do we prevent this of happening?
In the example that you have described, maybe you were not as self-aware yet. And maybe it could have helped if you talk to someone and somebody would tell you, Annie, you are already perfect as you are. You have always been enough. So it's really important to open up to people about these struggles, but sometimes we don't do it because we don't want to bother someone and we kind of take it on. It is an irony that people who are the most responsible and the most hardworking and the most who really care, those are the ones who burn out the most. So how we could prevent it is really take time every single day to recharge, whatever that means to us. And research shows that the easiest and most effective way to recharge is if we can find something that allows us to focus on that activity fully, something where we cannot think about work. So, for example, rock climbing. You cannot make a mistake. Or maybe doing some kind of, playing chess. Or maybe it is some kind of art where you really have to be in that flow. It truly helps to do that even for 15 minutes a day, and it could be any kind of activity we can really think of. And it also helps us kind of to zoom out and see everything from a bigger picture. When we see that bigger picture, we kind of get an idea that, okay, it's not us, it's actually the boss. It is the environment. I can change this, that thing I cannot change, and we can kind of make plans. And so to conclude, it is really to recharge. We have to find a way how to do it, do something for fun, talk to other people.
You always have to have some accountability partner or somebody to open up to, as you said, because if you keep it inside, it gets that much worse, right? And if we don't address burnout, what can potentially happen? You said somebody can collapse, but what does this mean?
It could honestly be like a domino effect, where burnout will almost destroy all areas of our lives. It could be the relationship. It could be the relationship with our loved ones, like family, spouse, even with friends. It could also be destroying our careers, because we will start making so many mistakes. We will be forgetting things. We will make bad decisions, because we will not be able to sleep enough, and that leads to so many troublesome areas of our lives. And even the health. We will just have more health and health issues that we will not be able to resolve or even explain. And in terms of statistics, it's really interesting how many deaths there even are. I don't have statistics for the whole world, but I know that in the United States, every single year, 120,000 people pass away because of work-related stress. So it's a huge number, 120,000 in United States alone. So it is a real serious issue that we need to really manage and kind of be more aware of and more self-aware as well.
So that the stress leads to, I guess, disease or a suicide, or what is
It could be any of these. Yes, it could be heart problems or immune diseases, and it will all accumulate and maybe even combine.
So you said in the beginning that you had burnout yourself. Would you care to share this experience?
This happened a couple of years ago at IBM. I was chasing a promotion and I got to work on a new project. It was a very large account and it happened to be on the other side of Canada, which is like 3 time zones ahead. And during that time, I had to get up very early every single day, like at 4 a.m., because I would have calls at maybe 4:35 with the client who was on the other side of Canada. And I was really trying to prove myself on that new account. I was working really hard. I had so many things to do, but I did exactly what I suggested for people to not do. And that is, I started skipping on the workouts. I started skipping on getting proper sleep. There were so many times I didn't even go to sleep at all because I couldn't fall asleep. So I thought, well, I'm just going to work and that will give me a good head start in the morning. And it did, maybe for a couple of hours. But then, of course, my energy was not managed. And I just had this idea that I have to prove myself, but I didn't know any better. And this was going on for like maybe 8 months. I was skipping on everything that was fun. I stopped doing my hobbies, stopped seeing my friends. I was definitely getting more emotional, even in meetings. And I noticed that I was starting to forget things as well, things that I would say that I would do. And this was really starting to affect my professional life. Fortunately, this project ended. It was put on hold. And it was only after that when I realized that, like, wow, what I just went through, that's not normal. And I could have managed better. I did not have to prove myself. So that was an experience that I'll probably never forget. I really went through that and I could really relate to what other people are going through as well.
I see. Well, good that this project stopped because, gosh, getting up every day at 4 o'clock. Oh my goodness. How did you survive 8 months?
It was the adaptability that we have, as people. I don't know. I managed on little sleep and I would not recommend this to anyone. Definitely not. And it was also happening gradually. That originally I had lots of energy because it was a new project. It was a chance of promotion. I could see the clear path. So that itself was giving me a lot of energy. But gradually that energy started depleting and I was not recharging enough.
Okay, so you're in the tech sector, and tech sector, like also banking, is very, very fast-paced. What would you recommend to people entering the fast-paced, high-stress work environment to protect themselves? What should they do?
It's true that in the tech sector, it's extremely fast-paced because not only it's the pace of change and innovation, but often people work with applications that are mission critical, like either in hospitals or airports, banks. There is just so much going on that we cannot stop working and be done with it. On the other hand, we do have to set up our boundaries. We have to be clear that sometimes we will have to work in the evenings or maybe even during the weekends, but it should not be the standard. So we really need to be clear what our boundaries are and discuss that with our managers and really ensure that there is enough people who can cover whatever has to be going on when we are away. And that doesn't mean only vacations. It means like after 5 p.m., 6 p.m., the weekends, early mornings, and so on. So that's the one thing I would recommend, the boundaries. The second thing is, because there is such fast pace, learning in tech is never ending. And I'm sure it's always never ending everywhere. But in tech, it's just so incredibly fast. And we have to be okay that we will never be on top of things. We will not. We just have to get into this mindset that we just try our best and we keep learning new things, but we just cannot expect any kind of perfection. It just doesn't happen. Then the third thing I would recommend is to really check the company that you are joining. Not all companies are aware in a way that they would really help their people prevent burnout. Not all of them care about well-being. A lot of them will probably care more about numbers. So really do your research and check the company that you are joining.
So you work in IBM. You're a coach a burnout coach and you are the top female creator or the top creator in Canada, right? And you just crossed 100,000 followers on LinkedIn. So there are many activities. You do a lot. How do you manage without burning out? Because that's a lot, a huge amount of work.
It is a lot because it takes a long time to create the content for LinkedIn. And it's not only the creation, it's also the research and the ideation and all of that go with it. And as you know, I have a full-time job, but the only way I have managed to do this is I work on some of the weekends to do the content creation, but I also ensure that I really implement all the activities that allow me to recharge. And I try to be okay with not striving for perfection. That is also important. And a couple of other things, you know how I mentioned on the zooming out? I find that is so important. I try to spend time away doing different activities that really allow me to zoom out, and that kind of gives me ideas what I could work on. And I would say lastly, I try to do those things that are very important, that are crucial as early in the day as possible. Because if I fill up the jar with the sand and the small rocks, the big rocks are not going to get there at the end of the day. So that is something I have been kind of having in my mindset. That is something I have to implement every single day. The jar with the big rocks to go first, and then the small ones, and then the sand.
Yeah, so you're right. It doesn't come from the hard work. So you're working hard, and maybe you can work on the holiday or the weekend. But the thing is, you do recharge, and that's the biggest difference, right? Because I do work during the weekends, but I enjoy it. But I still do the things that I like, and I don't feel tired. So that's the big difference. Because before, it was not like this. When I was in the corporate job, I was usually skipping quite a lot of gym. I was skipping gym. If I would have a meeting at work, I would, and it collides with my gym session, I would just say, okay, fine, I'll just skip the gym session and I'll do work, because that's my work ethic. Everything else doesn't matter. Only work matters. So I
can very much relate to that. Absolutely. Right. And I'm sure so many of your listeners also.
Yeah, exactly. Because everybody is like this. But then one day you realize that, okay, if I go to the gym for 1 hour, so what is going to happen? Nobody is going to die. Right? I'm not a doctor. I work in a bank, or I create the content, or I coach. And if I move my coaching session, nobody's going to die. If I don't post today on LinkedIn, nobody's going to die. So that's what I say to myself sometimes. I said, calm down. No one is going to die. That's what my motto is. It sounds strange, I know, but that helps me somehow.
It's not strange at all. It's really important to get that kind of zoom out, to see it that way, because when we are stuck in the middle of the things, we really cannot see outside, and we don't realize that it's okay to step out. The work is going to be there. Nothing will happen if we step out and take care of ourselves.
Yeah. And another thing I was doing was when my boss would say, just throughout my career, when boss would say something, I have to do it, right? I was such a yes sayer for a long time in my career. And then at one point, I said, okay, I'm not going to say yes. I said no. And the first time I said no, very politely, with reasons, etc. And then I realized, and then I got more respect because I preserve my time and energy and everything. And I was thinking, if I say no, that's it. They're going to fire me. Can you imagine? That's what I was thinking. So
it's really
stupid.
Interesting how this happens. We don't want to hurt people, and we don't want to appear as incompetent or as not team players. But on the other hand, when we say no, we get actually more respect.
Exactly. It is fact. You just have to overcome this fear, because there is fear, right? You have to overcome it somehow. You have to have it in you, inside. Nobody else can help you to say no, or just put your boundaries there. It's such an interesting topic. Can you share some challenge that you had in your corporate life, and how did you overcome it?
One of the biggest challenges that I had was when my daughter was quite young, I would say maybe 2 years old, I had to travel a lot, or I was supposed to travel a lot. And traveling in Canada means that you take a 5-hour long flight, maybe even 6, because that's how long it takes to go from Vancouver to, let's say, Toronto or Montreal or somewhere else on the other side. And I would have to leave my house on a Sunday morning to be able to go to the airport and take the 5-hour flight. And there is the 3 hours time zone difference. And I wouldn't come home until maybe Thursday evening, exhausted from the time zone differences, from the hotels. And this was going on for maybe 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. And I realized I don't want to do this anymore. I really want to enjoy my life. I want to sleep well. I want to spend time with my family. So I decided to step back and take an internal role at IBM that allowed me not to travel at all and work from home. So I have been working from home for a very long time, well before the pandemic. And I cannot say that this really accelerated my career. It certainly has not. But it's been a decision that I have taken and I will never regret it. But it did came from a big challenge that I had, that traveling.
Wow. That's to do a step back. It's a big decision. Not a lot of people can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because
it is true.
Yeah. We're chasing the next thing, the next promotion, the next job, the next position, the next title. And as you said, we forget about living life. I had something similar. And the thing is that as you are in your mid-40s, suddenly you start thinking, oh, I'm going to be 50 and then I'm going to be 60. And then, okay, 60 these days is fine, yeah, but that's it, right? And then the end is so close after that. And suddenly you realize, oh my goodness, what am I doing? Why I'm doing that? So that is so
true, yeah. And so many people have regrets later on that they did not spend life fully, that they were not themselves, meaning they didn't really follow what mattered for them, really. Maybe they followed what society was expecting, or maybe what their parents told them when they were young, that they always have to chase the career. And of course we can chase it, but we can choose our own ways how to do that. And we can choose our own ways how to be successful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So now talking about life, what was your best day in your life and your worst day?
The best one, I know this is a real cliche, but honestly, it was the day when my daughter was born. I just thought wow, this new life is starting, and not only hers, but also mine. Yeah. I felt so much responsibility. And again, not only to her, but I just felt there is something, I have a responsibility for the whole world, to be a good person and maybe to have good ideas how we can improve society and how we can bring goodness to the world for all the children. So I would say that was one of the best days. Yeah, I just felt really free at that point and full of energy. Yeah, it was really, really good day.
And what was your worst?
I cannot pinpoint any single worst day, but I'm thinking it will be probably days when I lost trust in someone. People that I believed in. Something happened and I realized that it's not what I assumed it was. Maybe there was some lies or some deception or something like that in general. But these would be more also learnings. Because we cannot always make assumptions, and those learnings also help me to be more resilient and choose with whom I will be working with. So yeah, I didn't see those as worst days, but I cannot really pinpoint any single worst day, to be honest.
Yeah, you're like me. We see the positive in people. But for me, one of the worst days were first when my grandmother died, and then the second one was when my father died. These are kind of days that you're losing something and you will never, ever get it back, right? So, but generally, I'm just like you. If you tell me now, I forget the bad things people do. Even the bad things people do to me, I just forget them. Sometimes it's annoying, but I think it's a great thing to have because you don't hold grudges and you feel better in your life rather than, just consistently remembering, oh, he did this to me or she did that to me.
I think so. And it allows us not to hold back to the other people that we meet and to all the people that we work with and people who are in our lives. Yeah.
I remember to ask you another question. It's not in the list, but who are men or women more prone to get burned out?
I would say it's the women because unfortunately they are still the major caregivers. No matter how much men try to help, and absolutely they do. But it is the women who end up doing the little things, like maybe they prepare the appointments for the dentist, or maybe the child has to go to a birthday party. So usually it's the women who will organize these things and talk to other moms, to figure out what time they should be in the party, what kind of gifts to bring. Women also tend to be more caregivers when it comes to like elderly parents. Especially like in the middle age, women often have young kids and then they also have elder parents and they are kind of sandwiched in between. Plus they are maybe on the top of their careers. So all these forces are kind of playing towards that burnout. But everybody can get burnout, absolutely. But I would say women are more prone to that.
I see. And one other question I want to ask you, and I should have asked it in the beginning, but never mind. Why did you decide? Actually, when you finished university, did you have a good idea of what you want to do?
To be honest, I didn't know. I grew up in the Czech Republic in the communism and I was about 15 years old when it changed around. But still at that time, you were supposed to do a career that can bring you some money. And it could be either, studying the economics business or going to a law school or maybe going to a medical school. Yeah. And I chose to do the business school because I thought that is the most applicable. Like anybody needs business, basically. Like every single company needs somebody who has some business acumen. So I thought I would do that, but I had no idea what to even do with it. Like I didn't know all the different fields, like maybe accounting, finance, marketing. I had no idea, no. Yeah, I kind of adapted to opportunities that came. Yeah, I have to say I never had a proper plan, to be honest.
Right. It just happened.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have so many people here on the podcast and I always ask them this question and absolutely nobody has a plan and they end up doing something simply because they did something else and that other thing happened. I was in Chicago a week ago and I spent a week with Northern Illinois University and a lot of students. And that was the main question. They were asking me, and they were like bachelor graduates or even MBA were asking me, okay, so how do I find out what am I good at? And how do I find my next steps? Is it too late? I'm 24. Can you imagine? No, it's not too late. It's just the beginning. Back to your point that you made that burnout happens with young people too, simply because they have this burden now to do something. And it's so, especially today, everything is changing so much every single day. I remember, because I come from Bulgaria, socialism, communism, exactly around the same time. So it was very clear, there was no a lot of options. You couldn't do 100 things. You just have to go and work in a company and that's it. It's not about values and, connecting your values with the thing you do and work. We just had to do something. And now young people are so, they have a lot of things to think about.
They do. And I'm not sure why this is happening, but I did hear and read that a lot of even teenagers, let's say 16, 17-year-old, they think they really have to figure it out. And they put on themselves a lot of responsibility, which causes a lot of anxiousness as well. And I'm not sure why this is happening. Maybe they see some other people and they assume everybody has it figured out. I'm not sure. But it is a thing, apparently, with the teenagers, unfortunately. So much anxiety because they feel the burden. They have to have it figured out.
Gosh, I have teenagers, but in their early teenage years, I have twins. So they're 14 years old. So I haven't seen that yet. But again, probably are right. And maybe social media, I don't know, because they see so much. I mean, when I compare with what we used to have in the Eastern Bloc, right? We didn't have a lot, right? We didn't know a lot. We didn't see the world outside. So we had low expectations? Is that,
I would
you
say
agree?
so. Definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we had low expectations.
Mhm.
And maybe that helped. I have no idea. Interesting.
Could have, yes. I also have an early teenager. My daughter is 14, just like your twins.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's finish the podcast with a question about what is the one thing we still don't know about you?
I would say it's my other life of climbing. And that is when my daughter was about a year old, I really needed to kind of find myself again and be not on my own, but like to be somewhat true to myself. And I also needed to get into fitness again and lose some weight. And I decided to climb mountains. And my dream was at that point to climb the highest mountains on every single continent, the 7 mountains. And I have climbed 4 so far.
Wow.
I have put that dream on hold somewhat because I believe in life we go through seasons.
Yeah.
And right now my season is not to climb. It's more, to focus on LinkedIn and developing my coaching business and be with my family. But yes, I did climb 4 of the highest mountains, like 1 on each of those 4 continents.
So which ones did you climb?
I started in Africa and I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro.
Oh, okay.
Following that, I went to Argentina to climb Aconcagua and then to Russia to climb Mount Elbrus. That's the highest for Europe. And then I climbed Mount Denali in Alaska, which is the highest for North America.
Oh, I see. Okay. I started with climbing was never my thing. Never. I just don't like climbing. I don't like sleeping in tents. I just generally don't like going up a mountain at all. But then I decided that I have to prove to myself that I can do anything. And I went to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in January.
That's amazing.
So, and it was a great experience. Although it was so hard, I did record some videos on the mountain, and some of the videos I couldn't finish because I was very emotional,
Yeah.
crying because this gets into you when you have climbed for hours and hours, and it's still quite a lot of time to go. And there is nothing else you can do. You just can't sit and do nothing. You cannot take a bus. You cannot take a plane. You just have to do it with your 2 own legs. They have to move one after another. And that taught me a lot. I thought that I don't have grit, but I do. I don't know why I thought. So I then started thinking, okay, so what is the next mountain I'm going to climb? I haven't decided yet.
Wow. That is amazing.
This one in Argentina, how tall is it?
It's 6,900 something meters. It's actually the tallest mountain outside of Asia, tallest in the world outside of Asia. Yes.
Wow.
The thing about Aconcagua is very high, but the climbing is somewhat similar to Kilimanjaro. You don't need any ropes. So there is just the altitude, strong winds. Those would be some of the dangers. Not a lot of water. You really have to look for it somewhere, like in a little small stream. Or even if there is snow, you have to melt water. But it is not a technical climb, and it's a really good experience to get to know Argentina as well.
I see. Oh, that's interesting. Because I'm not... are you going to climb one of the 8,000 in Tibet?
I would love to, yes. I haven't exactly made my plans whether I would love to climb Mount Everest or whether I would rather choose one that is maybe less busy. But I'm thinking definitely of doing that at some point. I would also like to maybe climb one mountain that has not been climbed before. We have a lot of those in British Columbia. So they are there. Yeah, maybe one day I can make plans. It will definitely require a lot of planning, especially the logistics. Like, how do you even get there? It has to be probably by helicopter somewhere. How do you get water if there is nothing? So yeah, I would love to explore some more for sure.
Wow. Well, see, we have common interests. Maybe we can have a climb together.
Yes, we should do that.
Well, Dora, it was so nice talking to you.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you so much. You're an inspiration, not only on LinkedIn, but generally as a person. So thank you so much for being you.
Thank you for your kind words, and thank you for hosting me, and all the best to you, to your family, and to your audience.
Thank you.